Have you ever stumbled upon an old song, a childhood photo, or even the smell of something you haven't experienced in years, and suddenly felt a strange mix of joy and sadness wash over you? It's like your mind drags you back to a moment that feels warm and comforting, yet at the same time leaves a slight ache in your chest. That is nostalgia. On the surface, nostalgia feels like a pleasant trip down memory lane, but if you pay attention, you'll notice it always carries a trace of longing, even pain. The question is, why do we return to it so often if it hurts? Why do we, in a sense, love to suffer from nostalgia? In this video, we'll explore the psychology and philosophy of nostalgia, why your brain clings to it, how it shapes your sense of meaning and identity, and most importantly, how you can transform it from a trap into a resource that helps you move forward in life. Let's start with the basics. Nostalgia comes from the Greek words nostos, meaning homecoming, and algos, meaning pain. Originally, it was even described as a kind of mental illness, almost like homesickness that left people emotionally crippled. But today, psychologists see nostalgia as something more complex, a bittersweet emotional state that ties memory, identity, and meaning together. It is not just about missing the past, it's about how your brain uses the past to understand who you are right now. Think of nostalgia as an emotional bridge. It connects who you were with who you are today and who you might become tomorrow. But as with any bridge, you can either walk across it to a new place or get stuck standing in the middle, unable to move. Why does the brain return to nostalgic states so easily? The short answer is that nostalgia is rewarding. When you recall moments of your past, your first friendships, family gatherings, the taste of your grandmother's cooking, your brain actually releases dopamine, the same neurotransmitter tied to reward and motivation. At the same time, recalling those moments gives you a sense of continuity, a feeling that your life has a story instead of being just random events. From a neuroscience perspective, nostalgia is a kind of emotional glue. It binds different parts of your personal narrative together, reassuring you that your life has coherence. But here's the paradox. While it can feel good, it also makes you painfully aware that those moments are gone, which is why nostalgia often comes with an ache. This tension between joy and loss is exactly what makes nostalgia so addictive. Let's use an analogy. Imagine your memories as a box of old letters. When you open the box, you feel the warmth of seeing words from people you loved, but you're also reminded that those people or those times are no longer with you. You can either treasure the letters as reminders of what shaped you, or you can spend hours rereading them, wishing you could return. And in doing so, you become trapped in the past. Nostalgia, then, is neither purely good nor bad. It depends on how you use it. Now here's where psychology gets interesting. Research shows that nostalgia isn't just a private indulgence. It plays a major role in your sense of meaning and identity. When you think nostalgically, you're not just remembering an event, you're recalling who you were in that moment. Maybe you remember being more carefree or more connected to people you've since lost touch with. And in that comparison, nostalgia creates a powerful question. Who am I now, and how have I changed? This can be either uplifting or unsettling. If you interpret the memory as proof of growth, nostalgia strengthens your identity. But if you interpret it as proof that you've lost something essential, nostalgia can make you feel stuck, incomplete, or even regretful. Let's go deeper. Philosophers often argue that human beings are time-bound creatures. We live with one foot in the past, one in the present, and one in the future. Nostalgia reveals just how much the past continues to shape the present. Think about it. Every time you feel nostalgic, your brain is rehearsing an older version of yourself, bringing it into dialogue with who you are now. That's why nostalgia can feel like a conversation between two selves. But here's the danger. If you identify too strongly with the past self, you might neglect the opportunities and potential of your current self. It's a bit like watching reruns of a show you loved instead of creating new episodes of your own life. So how can we avoid falling into nostalgia's trap while still appreciating its beauty? The key is to recognize that nostalgia is a tool, not a destination. Instead of treating nostalgic feelings as a longing to return, we can treat them as signals about what matters most to us. Let me give you an example. Suppose you feel nostalgic about your high school years, when you spent hours with friends laughing and exploring the world without responsibility. On the surface, it seems like you're just missing your youth. But if you dig deeper, what you're really craving might be a sense of connection, spontaneity, or freedom. The brain packages that desire inside the memory, but the underlying need is very much alive today. By decoding your nostalgia, you can discover what values or experiences you're hungry for and then look for ways to bring them into your present life. Let's test this with a thought exercise. The next time you feel nostalgic, ask yourself 3 questions. First, what exactly am I remembering? Second, what emotion is strongest in that memory? Joy, safety, freedom, love, belonging. And third, how can I create a version of that emotion in my life today, with the tools and people I have now? This process reframes nostalgia from being a museum of the past into being a compass for the future. Instead of getting stuck in longing, you're extracting wisdom from your own emotional history. Neuroscience supports this approach. Studies show that nostalgia can boost mood, increase resilience, and even reduce feelings of loneliness when used constructively. But the flip side is also true. Overindulging in nostalgia can make you avoid challenges in the present. It's similar to comfort food. It soothes you temporarily, but if you rely on it too much, you never develop healthier habits. That's why the secret is balance. Nostalgia is best when it's a reminder of what you value, not a substitute for living now. Let's add another layer. Nostalgia isn't just personal, it's cultural. Entire generations bond over shared nostalgic experiences. Old cartoons, classic games, music from a particular decade. Companies even capitalize on this by re-releasing products, rebooting movies, or reviving old-fashioned trends. Why does this work? Because nostalgia gives people a sense of collective identity. It tells them, you were there, you experienced this, and you belong to a group that shares this memory. But again, the question remains, are we using nostalgia to connect meaningfully, or are we using it to escape the discomfort of the present? When we understand this, we can start to see nostalgia not as an enemy, but as a message, a signal pointing toward the emotional nutrients we crave. Another way to think about it is this: nostalgia is like an old photograph. You can look at it and feel grateful for the beauty of that captured moment, or you can stare at it for hours, convincing yourself that your best days are behind you. The photograph itself hasn't changed. It's your interpretation that determines whether it inspires or paralyzes you. And this is exactly why awareness is the first step. Once you see nostalgia as a resource rather than a verdict, you reclaim control over its influence. So how do you turn nostalgia into a guide instead of a trap? One of the most effective ways is to treat it as data. Every nostalgic memory is like a highlighted passage in the book of your life. It tells you, pay attention, this mattered. Maybe you remember a childhood summer because it was filled with freedom, or an old relationship because it gave you a sense of being deeply seen. These are clues to the values that anchor your well-being. Instead of wishing you could go back, you can ask, how can I bring more freedom or more deep connection into the life I'm living today? When you frame nostalgia this way, it becomes a compass that helps you design a future aligned with your core needs. Another strategy is what psychologists call reframing. If you notice yourself sinking into nostalgic sadness, try shifting the story you tell about the memory. Instead of saying, those days were the best and I'll never get them back, say, those days remind me of what brings me alive, and I still have the power to create new moments like that. It's a subtle change in narrative, but it shifts your brain from loss to possibility. Think of it like looking at a sunset. You can see it as the end of the day and mourn its passing, or you can see it as a reminder that beauty exists, and tomorrow will bring another chance to witness it. Here's a practical exercise you can try right now. Take a nostalgic memory that comes to you often. Write it down in as much detail as possible. The people, the place, the smells, the feelings. Then, underneath, write a sentence that begins with, this memory matters to me because... Complete that sentence honestly. Then write a second sentence. Today, I can honor this memory by... Fill in something you can do now, no matter how small, that captures the spirit of the memory. For example, if your memory is of playing music with friends, maybe today you honor it by picking up your guitar for 10 minutes, or calling a friend to reconnect. This simple act transforms nostalgia from passive longing into active inspiration. It's also important to recognize when nostalgia is becoming escapism. If you find yourself constantly dwelling on the past to avoid the discomfort of the present, it may be a signal that something in your current life needs attention. Nostalgia is comforting because it's predictable. You already know how the story ends. But real growth happens in the uncertainty of the present. A good question to ask yourself is, am I using this memory to feel more alive now? Or am I using it to avoid facing something difficult today? This kind of honest reflection helps you set boundaries with nostalgia so it doesn't consume you. There's also a collective side to nostalgia that you can harness positively. Sharing nostalgic stories with friends or family can strengthen bonds. When you reminisce together, You're not just reliving the past, you're reinforcing the story of your shared identity. This is why people gather for reunions or why families tell the same stories at every holiday. These shared memories create continuity across time, reminding everyone that they are part of something larger than themselves. You can use this intentionally. The next time you feel nostalgic, share the memory with someone close to you and invite them to share their own. Instead of nostalgia isolating you, it becomes a bridge that brings people closer. Philosophically, nostalgia also reminds us of the fragility of time. It forces us to see that life moves in one direction and that beauty is often only visible once it has passed. This realization can either fill you with despair or motivate you to be more present. If nostalgia teaches us anything, it's that today's ordinary moments will one day be the treasures we long for. The laugh you share with a friend, the walk you take at sunset, the quiet moment of comfort. All of these are future nostalgia in the making. By living with that awareness, you can start to savor your present more deeply, instead of rushing through it. To put this into practice, try a technique called future nostalgia. Ask yourself, if I were to look back on this week 10 years from now, what moments would I want to remember? Then go create one of those moments deliberately. Maybe it's taking your partner on a spontaneous date. Maybe it's calling a parent and asking them about their childhood. Maybe it's journaling about what you're grateful for today. By planting seeds of future nostalgia, you reclaim the power to shape your story instead of just replaying the old chapters. Nostalgia also plays a role in resilience. Studies show that when people recall cherished memories, they often feel more hopeful about the future. This is because nostalgia reminds us that we've experienced joy, love, and meaning before, and therefore, it's possible to experience them again. So when life feels uncertain or overwhelming, leaning on nostalgia can actually strengthen your optimism. The key is to use it as a springboard, not a hiding place. Let it whisper to you, you've been happy before. You can be happy again. At the same time, it's worth acknowledging that not all nostalgic memories are simple. Sometimes they are tied to people or situations we've lost forever. The pain in those memories is real and it deserves compassion. If you feel sadness when you remember, don't rush to push it away. Let yourself feel both the warmth and the ache. By holding both, you honor the fullness of your experience. This balance of sweetness and sorrow is what gives nostalgia its depth, and it can actually expand your capacity for empathy, not just for yourself, but for others who also carry bittersweet memories. So let's bring it all together. Nostalgia is not about wishing yourself back into the past. It's about listening to the emotional messages your past is sending you. It tells you what you valued, what made you feel alive, what gave you a sense of belonging. When you treat nostalgia as a signal instead of a destination, it becomes a tool for designing a richer present and a more meaningful future. Instead of being trapped in longing, you use the memory as fuel for growth. In that way, nostalgia becomes less of a wound and more of a compass. And here's the final thought I want to leave you with. The very fact that you feel nostalgic means you've lived moments worth remembering. That in itself is a gift. The question now is, what memories are you creating today that your future self will look back on with gratitude? If you want to keep exploring questions like this, about the mind, meaning, and the tools we can use to live more consciously, then make sure to like this video, share it with someone who might need it, and subscribe to Mind Unlocked. This is your toolkit for better thinking, and nostalgia, when understood well, is one of the most powerful tools you already carry within you.